He's Alex Speier of the Boston Globe. You could catch him covering the Red Sox. You could also catch Alex Speier on 310 to Left as well. Alex, appreciate you taking the time. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Good to see both of you. And Travis, I want to tell you, as someone who's from the DMV, I grew up in DC and Northern Virginia, it doesn't work holding off the snow. The snow comes anyway.
Well, as you know, man, 2 to 4 inches, everything shuts down. You can't find bread or milk or anything. So here I have to get used to it. You're right, Alex. You're right.
Yeah, that was a week off of school back there. That's awesome.
Right. That's right.
I hate you guys. We saw, it would have to be 12 inches and maybe we get a delayed opening in Jersey.
Yeah.
A lot of walking up hills on my way to Randall Carter Elementary School. So, Alex, you put out a great article on the Boston Globe. It's titled, "The Red Sox Remain in the Mix to Sign Juan Soto," sources say, as free agent superstar whittles down options. What Red Sox fans love to see is he whittles down his options. They're still in play. And you put in it, quote, "According to Major League sources, the Red Sox are not among the teams that Juan Soto has eliminated. So the Sox are still in the hunt to land the 26-year-old superstar. What have you heard that makes Boston stand out in Juan Soto's eyes and still be a legit contender to land him in free agency?"
Well, the thing that still has them as a legit contender is the fact that they've offered $600 million. They have reached that threshold, which is kind of, from what I understand, the bare minimum in order to be still a part of the process at this point. And it is believed, I have not heard this directly, but I've heard that, there have been other reports that not only the Red Sox, but also the Yankees, Mets, and Blue Jays have all breached that, breached that threshold. So that's what's keeping the Red Sox in it. And obviously there is a cool history to the Red Sox and Dominican stars. The combination, the trio of Pedro Martinez, Manny Ramirez, and David Ortiz in Boston is something that basically is, that elevated the Red Sox to a very special position for generations of fans from the Dominican. But that's not going to be, sentiment is not going to be the ultimate driver in the process. So now it's about staying competitive in the final stretch of the bidding.
Listen, I understand the history between the Yankees and the Red Sox and sort of outbidding one another for the services of star players, but that's history. I want to go present day with you, Alex, because in recent years, to be honest with you, both teams have been a little more frugal than in the past, particularly the Red Sox. What is it about now where maybe we could see the Red Sox outbid the Yankees like yesteryear, like back in the day? What is it about the present day why the Red Sox are willing to do that? Is it the players specifically, or do you believe it's maybe ushering in a new era and a throwback to a time when that's just what it was with baseball?
So first of all, I want to take a step back on the premise of the question, because the Red Sox and Yankees used to bid on the same players, but typically when it was a straight up free agent bidding process, the Yankees almost always emerged with the player. So we remember, Johnny Damon going to the Yankees, Mark Teixeira going to the Yankees. The Red Sox were, what the Red Sox did was close out on players like Daisuke Matsuzaka, where they won the posting process and had exclusive rights to bid on the player. But they didn't outbid the Yankees in the free agent process there. Same thing is true with trading for Curt Schilling, for instance, when the Yankees also had a trade interest in Schilling, but the Red Sox were the ones who made the larger commitment in terms of prospect capital at the time. So going toe to toe with the Yankees on an elite free agent is actually terrain that the Red Sox haven't necessarily been tremendously successful navigating in the past. they've done well identifying free agents who, when the Yankees weren't involved on those same free agents, who could make a real impact. JD Martinez, they got him as a free agent in the same offseason where the Yankees had basically taken themselves out of the running by already acquiring Giancarlo Stanton via trade. But the Red Sox are in a different point than they've been in several years, in the idea that they are going for a top-of-the-market player. This is the first time that we're seeing that, basically, since, they were interested in Yamamoto last year, but were outbid in that process. The Red Sox want to get back in business. We heard it from team officials on the last day of the season. Sam Kennedy, Craig Breslow, Alex Cora all talked about the need for the Red Sox to start jumping into the deep end of the pool and not kind of building towards a promising future that would arrive multiple years down the road, but saying now now is the time to plant a flag. Now is the time to be an elite team. They've made competing for and winning the American League East their kind of gold standard for what they want to do in 2025. And so the beginning point of doing that is to try to acquire the best free agent available this offseason.
Yeah, we've heard the reports come out that Juan Soto, you said it, the baseline to be in the sweepstakes is $600 million. We've seen Jeff Passan report that it could be 15 years, $750 million. So it's $50 million a year for Juan Soto. He's 26 years old. He's the best hitter in baseball. You have a lot of prime years left. But what does it say to you about the Red Sox that they're meeting that bare minimum of that $600 million offer? As you said, hey, they are serious about pursuing him. What does it say to you about the Red Sox making that change and diving back into pursuing superstars, especially a highly coveted free agent, which you can't miss, like a Juan Soto?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, it underscores the idea that they recognize that it's time to do business in a different way than they've done it in recent years. That they have a good young core. They have a talented young core that they want to help propel to the next level. So we've seen that dynamic play out for them before. After the 2015 season, for instance, they finished with a 78-84 record, but you saw by the end of that season, Mookie Betts, Xander Bogaerts emerging as stars, as young stars. Other players such as Jackie Bradley Jr. Asserting themselves. So there was the makings of a core with more behind it. Andrew Benintendi and Rafael Devers were in the system at that time. And so they said, now is the time. We have a chance to build upon this young talent base by adding an elite veteran. So that's when they set a record for the highest price ever paid to a free agent pitcher when they signed David Price to a 7-year, $217 million contract. I think that this moment in time is somewhat comparable to that one because the Red Sox have excellent young players at the major league level who have already arrived, more coming in AAA when you talk about Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer, Kyle Teal, and Christian Campbell. So they see this as the opening of a window, and that in order to be able to push themselves through, they can't just stare at an open window, though. They need to propel themselves through it, and they need to do so, in their eyes, by bidding at the top of the market, whether that's Soto or, if they miss out on him, then looking at the top available starters on the market, guys like Corbin Burns, Max Fried, as well as trade candidates who would be able to front the rotation.
I am so glad you went there because that's exactly where I was headed, my friend. Let me peel back the curtain for you here on Boston Has Entered the Chat. When these rumors started, with the Soto rumors started, Alex, George and I sort of talked about. George was, of course, over the moon, as anyone would be, about the Soto rumors. And I said, well, I had to be the old man who yells at clouds. I said, well, listen, I need a couple of arms here, okay? I don't want to allocate all these funds to Juan Soto only so the team doesn't bring in a pitcher or two, in which George was right in saying that, hey, this could be the situation where they get Soto and a quality arm here. So let's just go here. If Soto comes here, will they still add an arm or two? And if you miss out on Soto, do you believe the team will go out and for sure get a starter or two? How do you sort of see, I guess my question is, how do you see both coexisting, or do you?
Yeah, I think that if they sign Soto, then obviously that's a huge amount of money that they're committing. But they also have an elite farm system, as mentioned before. Those top prospects, as well as some of the young players who they're trying to make sense of. You know, whether or not that's who are in the big leagues, whether that's a Wilyer Abreu or a Tristan Casas, using those guys potentially as trade chips in order to be able to land frontline starters. I don't think that Soto is being viewed as a sufficient offseason even if they were to land him, which again, it's worth stepping back and saying, like, there's no guarantee of acquiring Juan Soto, and you know there are other very committed bidders in this process. So it would be foolhardy for them to take that for granted. I think that, you know, you would likely see the Red Sox trying to pursue a front of the rotation starter via trade if they do acquire Soto, and I think that they would pursue both the trade or the free agency route for a top of the rotation starter if Soto signs elsewhere.
Now, to me, it seems like Max Fried would make sense. I mean, he has a sweeper in his arsenal, so that would coexist with Andrew Bailey and his approach to pitching. And we look around the diamond, too. You add a Juan Soto to the lineup. Could it be an Alex Bregman? When you look around for those other free agents that are complementary pieces, and now these latest reports of $50 million a year could change a lot as well. If the Red Sox land Juan Soto, who would be other players you think they should go after to continue to add to this roster and build a contender?
Yeah, well, I think that Garrett Crochet is an obvious potential trade target, given that he's only going to be making $3 or $4 million roughly in 2025. That's a guy who you could add. You would have to trade a lot in order to get him because he has 2 years of inexpensive team control remaining, but he's elite in terms of what his arsenal looks like. Again, I think that there would be a bit of a risk question, like how you want to manage your risk profile. If you do commit to Juan Soto at something like $45 or $50 million a year, then it might diminish your appetite to commit to a pitcher, to a starting pitcher for, 5, 6, 7 years at that level. And frankly, I think that the Red Sox have some general built-in reluctance to invest over that many years in a starting pitcher. Obviously, the returns on the 5-year deal for Chris Sale weren't great. The returns on the 7-year deal for David Price weren't great. So I think that you're looking at they'll explore the market beyond Crochet, though. They'll try to figure out, I would assume that they would try to figure out if the Diamondbacks are going to make a guy like Zach Gallen available. They would try to figure out if the Pirates or the Mariners might make one of their young controllable starters available in exchange for bat first prospect or position prospects. And whether or not you can make a match out of that, not sure. But I think that, again, the interest is going to be one way or the other adding top of the rotation arms.
When we look at that number, $750 million possibly could get up to that, but right now the floor being $600 million. Alex, do you think Juan Soto is worth that number and that long a term of a contract as well?
It's a great question. In the context of baseball history, right? The contracts that have been signed to this point, that's pretty steep, right? Like you're talking about more than twice as much as what Bryce Harper and Manny Machado got as free agents of comparable ages. That said, you don't look at what has been given out to date. You need to figure out where the market is right now. It was obviously changed in a pretty dramatic way by the signing of Shohei Ohtani last year and the breaching of the $700 million number. And so it's a question of, like, in the future, the needle always moves up. Right, like the gold standard has gone from $35 million a year for a position player. It's going to keep going up. The idea of $40 and $45 and $50 million position players somewhere in probably the early years of that contract isn't going to be foreign. And so from that vantage point, Juan Soto is about as safe a bet as you can have for a free agent superstar, given what the performance track has been of year over year over year, being elite from the ages of 19 to 25. So I'll put it this way: if you're going to set a record for the most money you're ever investing on a position player, Juan Soto is the guy. $750 million. I wouldn't have thought that it would go there, but the market forces take it in a place that separates it from historical precedent.
Hey, God bless the Red Sox for actually paying that money, early in the contract and throughout the contract and at the back end of the contract, unlike other teams who defer all the money in the world to their players until the year 3000. Apparently that's okay.
The Red Sox have done plenty of deferrals over the years. They did them with Dustin Pedroia. They did them with Chris Sale.
Yeah.
They did them with Rafael Devers. This is not a thing that's just a Dodgers thing.
Okay.
All teams are pushing out back end of the contract into the future. So Manny Ramirez is still being paid by the Red Sox the 8-year, $160 million deal he signed in 2000. So this is just how the baseball industry operates.
Man, I don't know, Alex. Maybe I need to renegotiate with Nesson and defer a bunch of money or something, Alex. I don't know what I'm doing wrong here. Look, George and I had this argument last night. I want to bring you in on this and see if I'm being fair or not. So George is open to everything. He wants trade, free agency. He doesn't care. He just wants some pitchers in here. And I'm with that. I understand that in theory. But I'm greedy, Alex. Okay, I said everyone tells me how great these prospects are. I don't want to give up any of them. I just want to go the free agency route. Obviously, we talked about them. You have Corbin Burns, Fried. That's almost like the top tier of free agent pitchers. But then, Alex, I love the second tier. You start looking at guys, I would love a reunion with Nathan Eovaldi. That's just me. So am I sort of out of pocket with this? Should I be more open to trading some of these prospects, especially if you get a high-end pitcher in return? Or do you like where I'm at, where I'm like, listen, let's hang on to these guys and just go spin the cheese, especially if you don't get a Juan Soto, go spin the cheese for the high-quality arms. Where do you sort of weigh in on either side?
I think the answer is sort of both. I think that you kind of have to take each trade proposal as an individual one-off case, and the circumstances can shift. Like in when the Red Sox signed David Price, part of the reason why they signed him rather than trading any of their young players, they thought that the cost of David Price as a free agent was going to be less than what the value of future prospects like Devers and Benintendi, like in a combined package, was going to be to them. 1 year later, they made the decision that Chris Sale in a trade was worth more than available free agent starters, both because of the uniqueness of Sale's talent, as well as because it was very important to them at the time to get under the luxury tax threshold. So there were different motivations at its heart. The one thing that hovers over this is that the Red Sox, generally speaking, they have some really good prospects. If you throw that prospect pool, the four guys I mentioned of Campbell, Anthony Meyer, and Teal, along with the number of young players who they have under control for a long period of time in the future, there's more players than there are spots on the field to play them. Mm-hmm. So that's where the Red Sox have to make an assessment. Okay, are we getting the absolute greatest value we can? Are we able to get the greatest possible value for one of these players, value that would exceed to us what that player would provide on the field, and that's when you make a trade. So the answer is explore both. I think that if you can, in a vacuum, you would prefer just to sign people and throw the money at them. If you're comfortable with that, you aren't always comfortable continuing. There is a budget, right? At a certain point, in order to add more talent, you need to start trading guys, unless you view the talent that you have as sufficient. So there's not a single answer. There's more of a blending of your viewpoints. For this show is about nothing if not bringing people together.
No, Alex, I love it, and I like you laying out all those options. It 1,000% makes sense, and that's what we go back and forth with. And at the end, Trav and I normally go, "I see what you're saying, and this is what I'm saying," and it could all happen. When we look at what these final teams are: Red Sox, Yankees, Mets, Dodgers. What do the Red Sox offer that you feel the Yankees, Mets, and Dodgers don't?
Again, I think that it starts with money. I think that that's the biggest factor that any team can have. But I do think, the Red Sox ability to involve guys like David Ortiz, who has a close relationship with Soto and his parents. They're neighbors in one of the off-season locations for both the Ortiz and Soto family. I think that there's something to be said for that and being able to speak to the experience that is potentially available in Boston, but ultimately probably going to come down to dollars and cents. So I think that's the challenge that the Red Sox face.
I get the dollar and cents. Is it important to you think, Juan Soto, that if he comes to Boston, he's the guy? Like if you're in New York, it's the Mets and the Yankees, and it's Aaron Judge.
Right.
And if you go to LA, it's Shohei, it's Mookie, it's Freeman. But if he comes to Boston, he is the guy. Does that matter to him, you think?
I don't have enough familiarity with him to know the answers to that. What I do know is that on a star-studded Nationals team, he looked very comfortable. He didn't look like he felt like he had to take a backseat to anyone. Yeah. On a Yankees team last year that featured Aaron Judge and that featured Garrett Cole, it didn't look like he was regretting the lack of attention or fanfare on his at-bats, because there was none, because he looked like an absolute star every time he stepped into the box and did the Soto shuffle. So I don't think that there's any worries on his part about whether or not, about the idea that he's going to perform in relative obscurity. The dude is going to stand out wherever he goes.
Yeah, that's well said. I covered that Nationals team, Alex, and they don't win that World Series without Juan Soto. I mean, there's people in D.C. still crying in their beer that he's gone. So that's a good point by you. I want to ask you about Pedro and Papi, because both of these guys in the recruiting process have done an excellent job up until this point, obviously trying to get Soto here to Boston. But my question is more of a hypothetical. Let's say they close this deal with the money, of course, and they get Juan Soto. We're all celebrating. He's a Red Sox. Do you believe, both Papi and Pedro are involved anyway. We see them all the time. Do you think they're going to be here more? If Soto signs, we get Soto signed, sealed, delivered, are we going to get more Big Papi, more Pedro around here? Because they got the deal done along with the Brinks truck. But, I would think we're going to get more of them. Am I off here, or you agree?
I think that both of those guys enjoy the level of engagement that they have with the team, being able to kind of show up when it suits their schedules. They're both busy guys in retirement, quite honestly. Like they both remain busy with not just with their media work, but also with kind of incredible humanitarian and philanthropic undertakings. Yeah. So will we see more of them? I mean, I think that they would, maybe slightly more. We'd probably see more of them in October, which hasn't been the case.
Which would be great.
Which hasn't been the case too much in Boston over the last handful of years.
Now, we know that the big rumor is, and the big reports is that it will be decided during winter meetings. Do you think this is a winter meeting start on Sunday? Think they wrap up Wednesday or Thursday? You think that's like wait till the final day? Do you think it could be early? Because it's not just Juan Soto deciding who he wants to play for. It's Scott Boras being his agent as well. Right. What do you think the process will look like as winter meetings heat up and we get into that starting later this week?
Yeah, that one's a bit of a black box. That one is entirely up to Juan Soto and Scott Boras. So that's a dangerous game to speculate on the timing. I think it is fairly safe to assume by the end of the winter meetings. If you just look at historical precedent, when Boras had, for instance, Garrett Cole, he agreed with the Yankees in the middle of the winter meetings when Boras clients, the Boras clients who sit at kind of the hub of the offseason often are kind of find their destination somewhere in the middle of the winter meetings, but the past doesn't have to necessarily be prelude.
Yeah.
Alex, walk off for you. Last one for me. I'm hearing a lot of fans saying, well, why are you spending this money on Soto, but you didn't on Mookie or you didn't on Xander? Do you feel like if Soto signs here in Boston, it's going to be cathartic, it's going to be therapeutic, it's going to be healing for a lot of the fan base?
I think it will be reassuring for a lot of the fan base that the Red Sox, that the Mookie decision didn't represent a pivot from what the Red Sox had been. That they remain motivated by the idea of winning championships and acquiring the best talent. I don't think that there's any undoing the Mookie decision because he's been so dang good with the Dodgers. He's already won 2 World Series with them, and he remains a stud who could have been a Red Sox for life, but they were, far enough apart in the negotiations that didn't take shape here. But yes, I think that what it will represent is a new chapter for the Red Sox in terms of where the organization's history and kind of where you're able to identify the bookends of the dark ages that run roughly from 2019, 2020 to 2024.
Hey, 26 years old, best hitter in baseball. You're going to have a lot of prime Juan Soto if the Red Sox nail him. And especially if they get him over the Yankees, Dodgers. Big if. Thank you, Alex. You always got our back. He's Alex Speier of the Boston Globe. You can catch his full coverage, of course, in the Globe covering the Sox. You could also catch him on 310 to left as well with TC. Alex, I appreciate you for the conversation. I appreciate you pouring this knowledge into us. Appreciate everything you do covering Major League Baseball as well.
Hey, great to see both of you guys. Thanks, George. Thanks, Travis.
Appreciate it, Alex. Have a good one, man.